The space station floated in the darkness between two galaxies. It was called the Bridge, and for 500 years it had been the place where humans and the Galactic Empire met to talk. No weapons were allowed here. No soldiers. Only words and handshakes. General stepped off her shuttle and took a deep breath. The air inside the bridge always smelled like metal and flowers. The Empire liked flowers. They grew them everywhere, even in space. She was 62 years old, but she walked like a woman half her age. Her gray hair was tied back in a simple knot. Her uniform was clean and pressed. On her chest, she wore only one medal. It was the Peace Star, given to her 40 years ago when she helped write the treaty that ended the last war. Behind her walked her assistant, a young man named. He carried a small bag with documents and a tablet, nothing else. That was the rule. No weapons, no guards, just trust. General said quietly, "Are you sure about this? The reports say the Empire is angry. Their new emperor does not like the treaty." Smiled. It was a tired smile, the kind that comes from seeing too much. The Empire is always angry about something. That is why we talk. Talking is better than fighting. They walked down a long white hallway. Windows on both sides showed the stars. Millions of them. Billions. Each one might have planets. Each planet might have people. Had spent her whole life trying to keep those people safe. Humans and aliens alike. At the end of the hallway there was a large door. It opened slowly and saw the meeting room. It was round with a big table in the center. On one side sat the Empire's representatives. There were 5 of them. They were tall, with blue skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were black and showed no emotion. They wore golden robes that touched the floor. On the other side of the table there were cameras, hundreds of them. The meeting was being broadcast to every human world. 12 billion people were watching. They wanted to see their general. They wanted to hear what she would say. Walked to her seat and sat down, stood behind her. The Empire's leader, a male named, looked at her with those black eyes. "General," he said, his voice was deep and cold. "You come to talk, but what is there to talk about? Humans spread too far, you take too many planets, the treaty says you must stop." Nodded slowly. "The treaty says humans may settle uninhabited worlds. We have done nothing wrong. We have followed every rule for 500 years. "Rules change," said. "The Empire changes. Our new emperor believes humans are a threat. You grow too fast. You build too many ships. You have too many children." "We cannot control how many children we have," said. "That is not fair." Leaned forward. "Fair. The Empire does not care about fair. We care about power, and humans have too much of it." The room was silent. Could feel her heart beating. She had been in many meetings like this. She had heard threats before, but something was different today. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. "Let us talk calmly," said. "Let us find a solution. War helps no one. You know this. I know this. 500 years ago we learned this lesson together." Stood up, his 4 arms spread wide. "The lesson we learned is that humans are weak. You begged for peace. You cried for mercy. The Empire gave you that mercy, but mercy was a mistake." Behind, a door opened. A soldier walked in. He was young, with bright blue skin and armor that shone like silver. In his hands he carried a weapon, a long rifle with a glowing tip. Stepped forward. "This is against the rules. No weapons on the bridge." Smiled. It was an ugly smile. "Rules change, human." Stood up slowly. She was not afraid. She had seen death many times. She had lost friends in the old war. She had held their hands as they died, but she had never thought she would die like this, in a place of peace, in front of the whole human race. "If you do this," said, "you will start a war you cannot win." Laughed. "Humans are farmers and builders. You forgot how to fight. Your warships are old and weak. Your soldiers are soft. The Empire will crush you in days." The soldier raised his rifle, looked into its glowing tip. She thought about her daughter, Miso, who lived on Earth with her 2 children. She thought about her husband, who died 10 years ago from a sickness. She thought about all the young people who would die if war came. "Please," she said, "think about what you are doing." The shot was bright and loud. It hit in the chest. She fell backward, her body hitting the floor with a soft sound. Blood spread across her white uniform. Her eyes looked at the ceiling, at the stars beyond the glass. Screamed and ran to her. He held her hand. Tears fell from his eyes. "General, General, please." Lips moved. She was trying to say something, leaned close to hear. "Tell them," she whispered, "tell them to remember who we are." Then her eyes closed, and she was gone. Across human space, 12 billion people watched. They saw their general fall. They saw her blood. They heard her last words. For a moment there was silence, complete silence. No one moved, no one breathed. Then the silence broke. It broke with screams and tears and anger. Mothers held their children. Fathers hit walls with their fists. Old soldiers who had fought in the last war felt something wake up inside them, something they thought was dead. On Earth, in a small house near the sea, Miso watched her mother die. Her children asked why Grandma was sleeping on the floor. Miso could not answer. She could only cry. On Mars, Admiral watched from his office. His hands shook. His coffee cup fell and broke on the floor. He was 70 years old. He had served under for 30 years. She had been like a mother to him. He picked up his communicator and called a number that had not been used in 500 years. It rang 3 times before someone answered. "This is," he said. His voice was steady now, cold. "Begin Protocol 7, wake the fleet." On the other end a voice replied, "Sir, are you sure? Protocol 7 means." "I know what it means," said. "The Empire killed our general. They killed her on live broadcast. They think we are weak. They think we forgot how to fight." He looked out his window at the red surface of Mars. Somewhere beneath that surface, in tunnels that stretched for thousands of kilometers, ships were sleeping. Ships that humanity had built in secret. Ships that the Empire did not know existed. "Wake them all," said. "Every single one. It is time to remind the galaxy who we are." He ended the call and sat down heavily in his chair. Outside, the sun was setting over Mars. It painted the sky in shades of orange and red, the color of blood, the color of war. Had wanted peace. She had dedicated her whole life to it, and now she was dead, killed by the people she had trusted, killed by the treaty she had helped create. But her death would not be meaningless, would make sure of that. The Empire would learn. They would learn that killing a human general was not the end of something. It was the beginning. The beginning of the end. Deep beneath the surface of Mars, the tunnels stretched for thousands of kilometers. They were dark and cold and silent. They had been silent for 500 years. But now, lights were turning on. One by one, section by section, the darkness was dying. Admiral walked through the main tunnel. His footsteps echoed against the metal walls. Behind him walked 20 officers, all of them old, all of them veterans of a war that most people had forgotten. They wore uniforms that had not been worn in centuries, blue and silver, with a red star on the chest. "Sir," said Captain, a woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes, "the crews are waking up. It will take 12 hours for everyone to be ready." Nodded. 12 hours is fine. The Empire thinks we are weak. They will take their time. They will celebrate. They will drink and laugh and talk about how easy it was to kill an old woman. His voice was bitter, had been more than a general to him. She had been his teacher, his friend. The person who showed him that strength was not just about weapons and ships. It was about heart, about belief, about never giving up. They reached a large door. It was made of thick steel with warnings painted in red. Protocol 7, authorized personnel only, put his hand on a scanner. The door opened with a deep sound like a giant waking from sleep. Inside was a room bigger than any building on Earth, and in that room, floating in the darkness, was a ship, but not just any ship. It was the Eternal Wake, the largest warship humanity had ever built. It was 3 kilometers long with weapons that could destroy a planet. It had been built in secret piece by piece over 200 years. No one in the galaxy knew it existed, not even most humans. "Beautiful," whispered. "I never thought I would see her with my own eyes." Looked at the ship. He remembered when he was young, when he first learned about the secret fleet. He had been angry at first. Why build weapons if we want peace? Why prepare for war if we believe in talking? Had explained it to him. Peace is not free, she had said. Peace is bought with strength. The Empire gave us peace because they thought we could hurt them. If they ever forget that fear, they will attack. And when that day comes, we must be ready. That day had come and was dead, but humanity was ready. Turned to his officers. Send messages to all hidden bases. Luna, Europa, Titan, the asteroid stations. Every ship must be awake within 24 hours. Every crew must be at their post. This is not a drill. This is real. The officers saluted and ran to carry out his orders. Across the solar system, the same scene was happening. On Luna, beneath the gray dust, thousands of soldiers were waking from their sleep. They had been sleeping for decades, waiting for a call that they hoped would never come. Now that call had come, and they were ready. On Europa, the ice moon of Jupiter, massive doors opened in the frozen surface. Ships rose from underground hangars, their engines glowing blue in the darkness. Each ship was painted black, invisible against the stars. Each ship carried weapons that the Empire had never seen. On Titan, the orange moon of Saturn, factories that had been silent for centuries came back to life. Robots began building missiles and bombs and armor. Raw materials poured in from the asteroid belt, carried by automated ships that had been mining in secret for 500 years. And it was not just the Sol system. Across human space, on every colony world, the same awakening was happening. Humans had settled 1,000 planets. On each planet there were hidden bases, hidden ships, hidden weapons. The Empire thought humans were farmers and builders. They were right, but they did not know what humans had been building. Back on Mars entered the bridge of the Eternal Wake. The room was huge, with screens covering every wall. Officers sat at their stations, checking systems that had not been used in centuries. Everything was working. Everything was ready. A young officer named turned to. "Sir, we are receiving messages from across human space. Everyone has seen what happened. Everyone is angry. They want to know what we are going to do." Sat in the captain's chair. It was big and comfortable, made of black leather. Should have sat here. This should have been her war to fight. But the Empire had taken that from her, from all of them. "Open a channel to all human worlds," said. "I will speak." The screens around him flickered. Suddenly, his face was being broadcast to 12 billion people. The same people who had watched die just hours ago. They were scared. They were angry. They were looking for someone to lead them. "People of humanity," began. "Today, the Empire killed our general. They killed her in a place of peace. They killed her while she was trying to save lives. They killed her because they think we are weak. They are wrong." He paused. On screens across human space, people leaned forward to listen. "For 500 years we kept the peace. We followed the rules. We built farms and cities and schools. We raised our children and buried our parents. We did everything the treaty asked, but we also did something else. We prepared. We built ships and weapons and trained soldiers. We did this not because we wanted war. We did this because we knew that someday the peace would end. And when it ended, we would need to be ready." He stood up from his chair. "The Empire does not know what we have built. They do not know about our hidden fleets. They do not know about our weapons. They think this will be an easy war. They think they will crush us in days, but they are wrong, so very wrong." His voice grew stronger. "General gave her life for peace. She believed in talking and understanding and finding common ground. I believed in her. We all believed in her. And now she is gone, but her dream is not gone. We will fight this war not because we love war. We will fight it because the Empire gave us no choice. And when we win, and we will build a new peace, a better peace, a peace that would be proud of. He looked directly at the camera. To the Empire, I have one message. You made a terrible mistake. You killed a woman who only wanted peace. Now you will face her children, and her children remember everything. We remember the first war when you killed millions of our people. We remember the treaty when you made us beg for mercy. We remember every insult, every threat, every time you looked at us like we were nothing. And now, we are coming for you. He raised his fist. For humanity, we rise. The broadcast ended. Across human space, the message spread. People watched it on their phones and tablets and wall screens. They watched it in offices and homes and hospitals. And when it ended, they did something that surprised even themselves. They cheered. On Earth, in cities and towns and villages, people came out into the streets. They shouted and cried and hugged each other. They were not celebrating war. They were celebrating something else. They were celebrating the end of fear. For 500 years, they had lived under the shadow of the Empire. They had smiled and nodded and pretended to be happy. But inside, they had always been afraid. Afraid that someday the Empire would decide they were too many, too strong, too human. Now that fear was gone, the worst had happened. The Empire had attacked, and instead of running, instead of begging, humanity was standing up. Finally, after 500 years, they were standing up. On the eternal wake, watched the reactions on his screens. He saw the cheering crowds. He saw the tears. He saw old soldiers putting on their uniforms for the first time in decades. He saw young people lining up at recruitment centers that had not existed yesterday. "Sir," said, "the fleet will be ready in 6 hours. All ships are reporting in. Every hidden base is active. We have more than 10,000 warships." Nodded. "Good. Set course for the assembly point. We will gather our forces and then move to Imperial space." "Sir," said, hesitating, "what about the Empire? They must know we are preparing. Will they attack first?" Smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Let them try. They do not know what is coming. They cannot imagine what is coming. By the time they understand, it will be too late." He looked at a picture on his desk. It was old and faded, showing a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes. 40 years ago, on the day she received her Peace Star, she looked so hopeful, so full of dreams. "We will make them pay," whispered. "I promise you, General, we will make them pay for what they did." Outside the ship, in the darkness of space, engines were starting. Lights were turning on. Weapons were charging. The sleeping giant was waking up. And it was angry. The assembly point was a place between stars, far from any sun or planet. It was just empty space, cold and dark and silent. But now it was not empty anymore. Ships were arriving every hour. They came from every corner of human space, jumping through hyperspace like fish swimming through water. Captain stood on the bridge of her ship, the Red Star, and watched the fleet grow. She was 35 years old, with long black hair tied in a braid and eyes that showed no fear. She had been a soldier her whole life. Her father was a soldier. Her grandfather was a soldier. Her family had been preparing for this war for generations. "Captain," said her first officer, a tall man named, "we have received new orders from Admiral. All ships are to paint their names in red, and we are to add one more name. The name." Nodded. "Do it. Let every ship carry her name. Let the Empire see it when we come." Outside her window, robots were already working. They moved along the hull of the Red Star, painting the name YUNA in large red letters. The same thing was happening on every ship. 10,000 ships, 10,000 times the name, written in the color of blood. It took 3 days for the fleet to gather. 3 days of ships arriving, crews preparing, weapons testing. 3 days of anger building, growing, becoming something powerful and unstoppable. The humans did not sleep much. They talked about. They shared stories about her. The old soldiers remembered serving under her. The young ones watched videos of her speeches. On the 4th day, Admiral called a meeting. The captains of all major ships gathered on the eternal wake, in a room so large it could hold 1,000 people. Was there, standing near the front. She wanted to hear every word. Walked to the stage. He looked tired. His eyes were red from not sleeping, but his voice was strong when he spoke. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I know you are tired. I know you are angry. I know you want to attack right now to make the Empire pay for what they did. But we must be smart. We must be patient. We must win this war, not just start it." A captain raised his hand. His name was, and he commanded a battleship called the Iron Fist. "Sir, what about the Empire's fleet? Our scouts say they have 20,000 ships. We have only 10,000. Smiled. "Numbers do not matter as much as you think. The Empire's ships are old. They have not fought a real war in 500 years. Their crews are lazy and undisciplined. They think fighting means pushing buttons from far away. They are wrong." He pressed a button, and a map appeared on the screen behind him. It showed Imperial space, with hundreds of stars and planets marked. "This is our plan," said. "We will not attack there directly. That would be foolish. Instead, we will attack their supply lines, their factories, their fuel stations. We will cut them off from everything they need. We will make them weak. And then when they are starving and scared, we will attack there." Nodded. It was a good plan, smart and careful, but she wanted more. She wanted to see the Empire burn. After the meeting, she walked to. "Admiral, I have a request." Looked at her. "Speak, Captain." "I want to lead the first attack. I want to be the one who fires the first shot." Studied her face. "Why?" His hands became fists at her sides. "My mother served under General. She was killed in an accident 10 years ago, but she always talked about the General. She said was the best person she ever knew. Kind, strong, fair. When I heard what the Empire did, I felt something break inside me. I need to do this, Admiral. I need to be the one who starts the payback." Was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Very well, you will lead the vanguard, but be careful, Captain. Revenge is like fire. It can warm you or it can burn you." "I understand," said. But inside, she did not care about being careful. She only cared about making the Empire suffer. The fleet moved out the next day. 10,000 ships flying through hyperspace like a storm through the sky. At the front was the Red Star with Captain at the helm. Behind her were 100 other ships, all fast and deadly, all ready to fight. Their first target was a place called Station 12. It was a fuel station on the edge of Imperial space, where ships came to refill their tanks before traveling deeper into the galaxy. It was not well defended. The Empire did not think anyone would dare attack it. They were wrong. The Red Star came out of hyperspace right above the station. For a moment there was silence, then gave the order. "Fire!" Missiles flew from her ship, bright and fast. They hit the station like hammers hitting glass. Explosions filled the darkness. Fire and smoke and debris flew in all directions. The station tried to fight back, but it was too late. Its defenses were old and slow. Within minutes, it was nothing but burning metal floating in space. Watched the destruction through her window. She did not feel happy. She did not feel satisfied. She only felt empty. This was not enough. It would never be enough. Captain said, "Imperial ships are coming, 20 of them from the nearby system." "Good," said, "let them come." The Imperial ships arrived expecting an easy fight. They found something very different. The Red Star and its group moved like dancers, fast and graceful and deadly. They fired and moved, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. The Imperial ships were confused. They had never faced an enemy like this. They had never faced humans who knew how to fight. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it was over, all 20 Imperial ships were destroyed. The Red Star had only minor damage, looked at the results with wide eyes. "This is amazing," he said. "We destroyed them so easily." Shook her head. This was just the beginning. The Empire has many more ships, many more stations, many more soldiers. We have a long way to go." But she allowed herself a small smile. The Empire was learning. They were learning that humans were not weak. They were learning that killing was the biggest mistake they had ever made. News of the victory spread quickly through human space. People watched videos of the battle, cheering every time an Imperial ship exploded. They made songs about Captain and the Red Star. They painted pictures of the fleet with its name on every hull. The morning was turning into something else, something fiercer. On Earth, Miso watched the news with her children. She was still sad about her mother. She would always be sad. But now, mixed with the sadness, there was pride. Her mother had lived for peace, but her death had woken something in humanity that had been sleeping for 500 years, a fire that refused to die. "Mommy," her daughter asked, "why are the ships red?" "Because they are angry," Miso said. "Because they loved Grandma." "Will they win?" Miso looked at the screen at the fleet painted with her mother's name. "Yes," she said. "They will win. Grandma would not let them lose." In Imperial space, the news of Station 12's destruction caused panic. The Emperor, a young male named, called an emergency meeting. His generals stood before him, their blue faces pale with fear. "How is this possible?" demanded. "Humans do not have ships like that. Humans cannot fight like that. Our intelligence said they were weak." One general stepped forward. His name was, and he was the oldest of them all. "Your Majesty, our intelligence was wrong. The humans have been preparing for this. They have built a fleet in secret, a fleet we knew nothing about." "Then destroy it," shouted. "Send everything we have." Shook his head slowly. "Your Majesty, I do not think that is wise. We should try to make peace. We should apologize for killing their general. We should." "Peace?" laughed. It was an ugly sound. "We do not make peace with humans. We crush them. Send the fleet, all of it. End this war before it truly begins." Bowed his head. "As you command, Your Majesty." But as he walked away, he felt fear in his heart. Real fear. The kind he had not felt in 500 years. He remembered the First War. He was young then, just a child, but he remembered the stories. Stories of human soldiers who would not give up. Stories of human ships that kept fighting even when they were broken and burning. Stories of a species that refused to die. The Empire had won that war, but it had been close, so very close. And now the humans were back, stronger than before, angrier than before. And this time was not sure the Empire would win. He looked out a window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the human fleet was coming. 10,000 ships with name painted on their hulls. 10,000 ships full of people who wanted revenge. The galaxy was about to change, forever. The Imperial was called Throne. It was a beautiful planet, covered in green forests and blue oceans and cities made of white stone. For 1,000 years, it had been the center of the galaxy, the heart of the Empire, the place where all power came from. Now it was about to fall. Commander stood on the bridge of his ship, the Morning Star. He was 50 years old, with a face like carved stone and eyes that had seen too much death. He had led the attack on the Empire for 6 months. 6 months of battles, 6 months of victories, 6 months of watching Imperial ships burn. Behind him, spread across thousands of kilometers of space, was the human fleet. It was smaller now than when they started. They had lost ships. They had lost people, but they had also won. They had destroyed every factory, every fuel station, every supply ship. The Empire was starving. Its ships had no fuel. Its soldiers had no food. Its people had no hope. "Commander," said his officer, a woman named, "we are receiving a message from Admiral. He says the fleet is ready. We can begin the final attack." Nodded. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment when everything would change. "Open a channel to all ships, and open a channel to Throne. I want the Emperor to hear this." The screens flickered. Suddenly was speaking to everyone, his own fleet, the Imperial military, the people of Throne. The whole galaxy was listening. "People of the Empire," he began. "6 months ago you killed our general, you killed her in a place of peace. You thought this would make us afraid. You thought we would beg for mercy. You were wrong." He paused, letting the words sink in. "For 6 months we have been teaching you a lesson about who we are, a lesson about what happens when you hurt us. You called us weak. You called us farmers and builders. You said we forgot how to fight. Now you know the truth. We never forgot. We were just waiting." Outside his window, Throne floated in the darkness. It looked so peaceful from space, so innocent, but knew what was inside. He knew about the emperor who ordered death. He knew about the generals who laughed when she fell. He knew about the soldiers who celebrated like they had won a great victory. "Today we finish what you started," said. "Today we come for you, but we do not come to destroy. We do not come to kill your children or burn your cities. We are not like you. We come for justice. We come to make sure this never happens again." He raised his hand. "All ships begin the attack." The human fleet moved forward, 10,000 ships with names still painted on their hulls. They flew toward Throne like a wave toward a beach, unstoppable and fierce. The Imperial defenders tried to fight back. They had gathered every ship they had left, about 5,000 in total, but it was not enough. It was not even close. Captain and the Red Star were at the front again. She had fought in every major battle of the war. Her ship was covered in scars from enemy weapons, but she was still alive, still fighting, still angry. Captain said, "Imperial ships are forming a defensive line. They are trying to protect the palace." "Break through them," ordered. "Nothing stops us today." The battle for Throne lasted 8 hours. It was the biggest battle in galactic history. Ships exploded everywhere, filling space with fire and debris. Thousands died on both sides, but slowly, steadily, the human fleet pushed forward. They broke through the defensive line. They destroyed the orbital stations. They cleared a path to the planet. When it was over, the Imperial fleet was gone. Every ship was destroyed or captured. The sky above Throne was empty except for human vessels. The war was over. On the Eternal Wake, Admiral watched the final moments of the battle. He was tired, so very tired. 6 months of war had aged him 20 years, but he was also proud of his people, proud of what they had done. "Sir," said, "Commander is requesting permission to land. He wants to go to the palace." Nodded, "Tell him to go, and tell him to be careful. We want the Emperor alive." Shuttle landed in the gardens of the Imperial Palace. The gardens were beautiful, full of flowers and fountains and trees that had grown for centuries. But today they were empty. The servants had run away. The guards had surrendered. Only one person remained. Emperor sat on his throne in the great hall of the palace. He was young, only 30 years old, with blue skin and 4 arms and eyes that showed nothing but fear. He had never expected this. He had been told the humans were weak. He had been told this war would be easy. He had been lied to. Walked into the great hall. His boots made loud sounds on the marble floor. Behind him walked 50 human soldiers, their weapons ready, but they did not need to fight. There was no one left to fight. Stopped in front of the throne. He looked at the emperor for a long moment. This was the male who ordered death. This was the male who thought killing an old woman would solve his problems. This was the male who started a war he could not win. Emperor said, "Do you know why I am here?" Tried to look brave. "You are here to kill me, to take your revenge. Fine, do it. I am not afraid." Shook his head slowly. "No, we are not here to kill you. Killing you would be too easy, too quick. You would become a martyr. Your people would remember you as a hero who died fighting the humans. That is not what we want." Looked confused. "Then what do you want?" Took something from his pocket. It was a small device, a projector of some kind. He pressed a button and suddenly the room was filled with light. Images appeared in the air. Images of as a young soldier, receiving her peace star, giving speeches about hope and friendship, smiling at the camera, her eyes full of warmth. "This is the woman you killed," said. "Her name was, she had a daughter named Miso, and she liked to garden and read books and cook food for her friends. She believed that humans and the Empire could live together in peace. She dedicated her whole life to that belief. And you murdered her." Looked at the images. For the first time, he saw not as an enemy, but as a person. A real person with a family and dreams and a life that had been taken away. "I did not kill her myself," said weakly. "It was my generals. They said it was necessary." "You gave the order," replied. "You are responsible, and now you will pay." He turned to his soldiers. "Take him, but do not hurt him. He has a long life ahead of him, a long life of remembering what he did." The soldiers moved forward and grabbed. He did not resist. He was too shocked, too confused, too afraid. They dragged him out of the great hall, past the empty gardens, toward a shuttle that would take him to a human ship. Outside, the people of Throne were gathering in the streets. They had watched the battle from below. They had seen their fleet destroyed. They had seen human ships fill their sky. And now they watched as their emperor was taken away like a criminal. They did not know what would happen next. They did not know if the humans would be cruel or kind. They only knew that everything had changed. The empire which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years had fallen, and it had fallen because of one stupid decision. One bullet, one dead woman. On the eternal wake received word that had been captured. He closed his eyes and let out a long breath. It was over. The war was over, had been avenged. But he did not feel happy. He felt tired and sad and empty. So many people had died, humans and aliens alike, fathers and mothers and children, all because one emperor thought he could solve his problems with violence. "Sir," said softly, "what happens now?" Opened his eyes. "Now we build something new, something better, wanted peace. Real peace, not the fake peace of the treaty. Now we have a chance to make that happen. We cannot waste it." He stood up and walked to the window. Below him, Throne floated in space, beautiful and green and alive. Millions of people lived there, millions of lives that were now in human hands. "We will not be like them," said. "We will not be cruel, we will not be unfair. We will show them what humanity really is. Not farmers and builders, not soldiers and killers, but people. Real people who want the same things they want: peace, safety, a future for their children." He turned back to, "Contact all human worlds. Tell them the war is over. Tell them we won. And tell them that the real work is about to begin." 1 year had passed since the war ended. 1 year since the human fleet filled the sky above Throne. 1 year since Emperor was taken from his palace and shown to the galaxy as a prisoner. Now, things were different, very different. The great hall of the Imperial Palace was full of people. Humans and aliens stood side by side, talking and laughing and sharing food. The walls were decorated with flowers and lights. Music played softly in the background. It was a celebration, but not a victory. It was a celebration of something else, something new. Admiral stood near the front of the hall, wearing his dress uniform for the first time in years. He looked older than before, his hair completely white now, his face lined with wrinkles. But his eyes were clear and bright, alive. "Admiral," said Captain, walking up to him. She too looked different. Her hair was longer, her face softer. The anger that had burned in her eyes for so long was gone now, replaced by something like peace. "It is almost time." Nodded. "I know. Is everything ready?" "Yes, the monument is finished. The guests have arrived. The broadcast is set up. Everyone is waiting." Took a deep breath. "Good, then let us begin." He walked to the front of the hall, where a stage had been set up. On the stage was a large object covered by a white cloth. Behind it, through tall windows, the sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The room fell silent as stepped onto the stage. Every eye was on him. Every ear was listening. "Thank you all for coming," he said. 1 year ago we won a war we did not want, a war that was forced upon us. Many people died, humans and aliens alike, friends and enemies, sons and daughters. We cannot bring them back, but we can honor them, we can remember them, we can make sure their sacrifice was not meaningless. He turned toward the covered object. 1 year ago, a woman named was killed in this very palace. She came here to talk about peace. She came here with hope in her heart and words on her lips, and she was murdered, shot down like an animal. That murder started a war that killed millions. But that murder also did something else. It reminded humanity who we are. It woke us up from a sleep that had lasted 500 years. He reached for the cloth. Did not want war, she wanted peace. Real peace based on trust and respect and understanding. She did not get to see that peace in her lifetime, but today we are building it. Today we are creating something she would be proud of. A new order. A galaxy where humans and aliens live together not because of fear, but because of friendship. He pulled the cloth away. Underneath was a statue of standing tall and proud, her hand reaching out as if offering a handshake. The statue was made of white stone, the same stone as the palace itself. At its base, words were carved in both human and alien languages. She came with peace, she left with our hearts, we will never forget. The room was silent for a moment. Then slowly the applause began. It started with the humans but quickly spread to the aliens as well. Blue hands and pink hands clapping together. Black eyes and brown eyes filling with tears. For the first time in a long time there was no division. There was only remembering. In the front row, a woman sat with 2 children by her side. It was Miso's daughter. She had traveled from Earth to be here, to see her mother honored, to see the statue that would stand forever in the place where she died. "Mommy," her son whispered, "that is Grandma, right?" "Yes," Miso said, wiping tears from her eyes, "that is Grandma. She looks happy." Miso smiled through her tears. She was happy. She was the happiest person I ever knew. Even when things were bad, she always found a way to smile. She always believed things would get better. "And they did get better," her daughter said. "Right, Mommy, things are better now." Miso looked around the room, at the humans and aliens together, at the decorations and the lights and the statue of her mother, at a galaxy that was finally, slowly, learning to live together. "Yes," she said, "things are better now." After the ceremony, there was a special meeting in a smaller room. Only a few people were invited, and one more person, Emperor, had changed in the past year. He was thinner now, his blue skin pale from lack of sunlight. He had been kept in a comfortable prison, given books and food and medical care. But he had also been made to watch, to learn, to understand what he had done. He walked into the room slowly, his head down. 2 guards stood behind him, but they did not touch him. He was not dangerous anymore. He was just tired, broken. Said, "Do you know why you are here?" Nodded, "The ceremony, the memorial for the woman I killed." "Her name was," said sharply. "You should know her name by now." Flinched, "Yes, I know her name, I know everything about her now. You made sure of that." Stepped forward. "We did. Every day for a year you watched videos about her. You read her letters. You listened to her speeches. We wanted you to understand what you destroyed." "And now," asked, "what happens now? Do you kill me, execute me for my crimes?" Shook his head. "No, we told you before, killing you would be too easy. Instead, you will do something else, something harder." He handed a piece of paper. On it was a list of instructions. Read them, his eyes growing wider with each line. "This is, you want me to do this every year." "Every year," said, "for the rest of your life. And when you die, your children will do it. And their children after them. The Empire will never forget what you did. They will never forget. That is your punishment." Looked at the paper again. The instructions were clear. Every year on the anniversary of death, the emperor of the remaining imperial territories would come to this palace. They would kneel before statue. They would read a statement admitting their guilt. They would apologize to every human watching, and they would promise to keep the peace. It was humiliation, public, endless humiliation, for and his family forever. "This is cruel," whispered. Laughed bitterly. "Cruel. You shot a 62-year-old woman who came to talk about peace. You started a war that killed millions. You wanted to destroy our entire species. And you think making you say sorry once a year is cruel?" Had no answer. He just stood there holding the paper, looking at the floor. "Take him away," said. "The first ceremony will be in 2 days. Make sure he is ready." The guards led out of the room. When he was gone, turned to. "Do you think this will work? Do you think this will really keep the peace?" Sighed. "I do not know. Peace is not about ceremonies or statues or promises. Peace is about people, about choosing to understand instead of hate, about choosing to talk instead of fight." Knew this. She spent her whole life trying to teach it. Maybe now, finally, people will listen. He walked to a window and looked out at the city. The sun had set and the lights were coming on. Millions of lights in millions of windows where millions of people were living their lives. "The galaxy is changing," said. "Slowly, but it is changing. Humans and aliens are working together now, building together, talking together. It is not perfect. There are still problems, still arguments, still people who hate each other, but it is better than before, much better." Joined him at the window, would be proud. "I hope so," said. "I really hope so." Far away, on Earth, the ceremony was being broadcast to every screen. 12 billion people watched the statue of standing in the Imperial Palace. They watched the humans and aliens clapping together. They watched a galaxy being reborn. In a small house near the sea, Miso sat with her children and watched too. The children were tired now, falling asleep on the couch. But Miso stayed awake. She looked at the statue of her mother and remembered. She remembered her mother's laugh, her mother's cooking, her mother's stories about the old days when humans and aliens first met. She remembered the way her mother always believed in people, even when they disappointed her. The way she always hoped for something better. "You did it, Mom," Miso whispered to the screen. "You finally did it." Outside, the stars were shining. The same stars that humans had always watched, dreaming of the day they would travel among them. The same stars where had fought and talked and died for peace. The peace treaty of 500 years had collapsed with a single bullet. But from its ashes, something new was growing, something stronger, something that would last not because of fear but because of understanding, because of remembrance, because of love. The woman general was gone, but her legacy would live forever. And somewhere in that small house by the sea, a mother smiled at the stars, because she knew that her mother was watching, still hopping, still believing, still smiling,